the things on a child-free bingo card are these very uncomfortable conversations that a child-free person encounters by simply existing and being honest. Hey, welcome to Unapologetically Child-Free, the everything that you need in one place podcast for a life without kids. I'm Maggie Dickens, a licensed therapist and your child-free hype woman, here with candid conversations about friendships, lifestyle, and everything that defines our child-free life. So join me on this journey where we get to live life unapologetically. All right, if you've been in the child-free community for a while, you're probably familiar with the not-so-fun game of child-free bingo. If you're not, there's going to be a free download in the show notes that you can grab for yourself. Let's talk about these that the child-free community faces on a daily basis. And some of these are pretty extreme. And if you hear some and you go, no one's ever told me that, I've never heard that, I've never experienced this, I love that for you. I really do. However, every single one that I'm going to tell you, I have received at one point in my life. I know that some of these aren't even the most extreme versions that some of my peers have experienced in theirs. So I hope you continue to have an easier child-free experience. However, please know that there are some people out there who have some strong ass opinions about whether or not you and I have kids. All right. I am going to break these down and I'm going to give you real life helpful, not just snarky responses to some of these statements. Because when we're talking about stereotypes, it's not only helpful to be like, okay, here's the shit that's put onto us and that we just have to deal with. No, we don't have to deal with it. We don't have to let someone say, hey, I don't like the way that you're living your life. And so I'm going to talk shit about you all the time. Nope. We don't have to do that. Instead, we can be adults and we can set the boundaries and have appropriate communication that puts them in their place. Let's go through each one of these, and I will give you a little bit of my own thought on each of these child-free bingo, stereotypes, myths, misconceptions. And I will also give you a statement that you can use to effectively and maturely and clearly communicate your child-free choice and shut down their judgment and attempt to put you back into this box. Okay. So the first one, you'll never know true love without kids. This one, I have to take a breath before I respond because this one pisses me off. I'm probably going to say that about all of them. This one makes me really, really mad because as someone who grew up in a very small nuclear family and had some fractures within my extended family, I learned really early on about the family that you choose and creating friendships that had such strong attachments and that felt closer to me than family members. And equally, I am an uber romantic. Disney fully ruined me. Hallmark Channel fully ruined me. I live for a good love story. I live for the heart grows 3 times bigger kind of experience. And so when someone says that I'll never know true love when I don't have kids because that was their experience, it makes me sad for their partner. It makes me sad for their other family members and their friends. It makes me sad for them too because it shows that they didn't have a heart wide open in the way that they did when they had a kid. These are not things that I would tell people. That's not the healthy communication. That's what pisses me off. The healthy communication is to assert what you believe. So if someone says, you'll never know true love without kids, my response is, my heart is so full of love for the people in my life. And I feel deep love from the people in my life. And that is enough. And they may have a clap back, right? They may say, but it's not enough. That's when you realize, okay, this conversation is not going to, they just want to be right. However, you get to point out that my heart is full. I am fulfilled with my family and my friends. and my partner. These are the things that make me feel so loved. Would adding a kid to that add love? Maybe, but it may take love away from some of the other relationships in my life. And I don't want to do that because I already have a full heart. So that's one example. Okay. So the second one, you just haven't met the right person yet. Okay. This one is very difficult to not laugh at, to be quite honest. Because when we think about healthy attachment in romantic relationships, if someone really believes that falling in love, in romantic love with someone else has the ability to change who you are on the inside, then I think they haven't done a lot of personal values work. And so when someone says this to me, my response is, the right person will value who I am and the choices that I've made. Plain and simple, right? We don't have to go down the road of explaining any further. We can get just straight and to the point. Okay. Oh my goodness. All right. Here we go. We've got the big one. You'll regret it when you're older. Huh? There's a couple of things that people say. They'll say, you can't regret something that you never wanted. You can't regret something that you never had. Here's how I like to respond to the you'll regret it when you're older. What I would be more afraid of is having kids and then regretting that decision. That's the truth for me. And it also flips the regret on its head because if I regret not having kids when I'm 56 years old, which it's not going to happen, if I were to do that, and sure, there are people out there who probably say that that's true for them. They have to deal with that regret on their own, and it is only affecting them, maybe their partner. If you have children and then regret having those children, it is almost impossible to not affect the attachment that you have with that child or those children. And so it is more responsible to say, if I cannot, without a doubt, say that I would not regret having kids, then that is too great of a chance. All right. So in the same vein, there's the how do you know you don't want kids if you've never had them or you haven't tried it? The idea of it's almost like kids are like food. So how do you know you don't like Brussels sprouts if you've never tried it? Well, Brussels sprouts is a bad example because I love Brussels sprouts, but let's just go with it. If I don't like them, I can spit them out. I can just take the food out of my mouth, pop it into the trash, no harm, no foul. It's a little, uncouth, as they say. It's a little crass. Nothing is harmed in that, right? You cannot do that with children. You cannot give them back. You cannot put them back into your womb and, go reverse the whole conception situation. You cannot do that. And so if someone were to say, how do you know you don't want it if you haven't tried it? Then it would be something very similar to it is more responsible for me to not have kids for the sake of just trying it out. Use their language, use their words, and put that out there. Okay. Remember, we're not here to be rude. We're not here to be mean. We're here to help people see that when they're saying these things, what they're saying is rude because what they're saying is rooted in society's belief about the child free and the bias that we have towards parents. Okay. So this is also an educational opportunity if you want to take that and give it to the people that you're talking to. What about your legacy? Don't you want to leave a legacy? A couple of different answers for this one. My go-to is I don't care about a legacy. That's the truth. I just don't. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and we'll probably talk about those in future episodes, but that's one. If it's true for you, that's a really great way to end it or to respond to that child-free bingo. Another way if somebody is saying, "What about your legacy?" is talking about all the things that you are doing in your life that you believe is worthy of people remembering you for. So, charitable works that you have done, ways that you have contributed to society, the compassion and the love that you have put into this world, any of those kinds of things, right? If any art that you put into the world, any ways that you have made a difference, any of those kinds of things, that's something that you would want to be your legacy. So you can even come back with that and say, my legacy is in all of the charity work that I do with such and such organization and all of the people's lives who I help on a weekly basis or however often you volunteer. So that's another way of flipping what is legacy. Is legacy simply DNA and a bloodline? That's the snarky. That's not how we're responding. We're responding in a healthy way, but those are the things that when we're thinking about the answer, right? Our defensiveness wants to go and just be like, "What the hell? Why are you asking me this?" It's because the belief system is saying that legacy is DNA, is bloodline. And what we're doing is we're breaking through that stereotype and we're saying, "No. No, no. I am more than my DNA. I am more than my bloodline." And or I don't care about my DNA, I don't care about my bloodline, being passed on. Okay. You're selfish. You're immature. Oh my god. This is another one that just makes me just question how nice I can be sometimes. Um so when I am thinking about how to answer this question, I haven't gotten the you're selfish or you're immature in a long time. And so luckily, I haven't had to come across this in a while. One of the best ways is to just embrace it because all humans are inherently selfish. It is part of our makeup as a species. And so you can absolutely say, and it makes no sense for a selfish person to have kids. Plain and simple. If they wanna call you selfish, you can embrace that it is selfish, even though we know that there are a lot of reasons that people choose not to have kids, and it's for the greater good. Overpopulation, climate change, uncertainty in certain communities and cultures, and those kinds of things that we're doing a lot for the greater good. You could have that conversation if you wanted to. I typically don't because often these statements aren't coming from people who want to understand. They're really just wanting to put you back in that box. So if someone were to call me selfish or say that I'm immature, my response is this is probably one that I'm bordering on snarky and say, and as a selfish person, it makes sense for me to not have kids and just leave it there, right? And just not engage. If someone tells me having kids is God's purpose or some type of a religious comment, as someone who is not religious, it is something that I'm able to say, "I don't subscribe to that. My purpose is not related to any type of religion." I can say, "I have various different purposes, and children are none of them. Who will take care of you when you're older?" My snarky self wants to say, "Why are you volunteering?" Um, but we're not saying that. We are being healthy, we are communicating appropriately, right? So this is one where you can have an educational moment. And so as you are having that educational moment, you can say, "I don't believe it's appropriate to have kids as an insurance policy or a healthcare plan." That's one where some people would say that's bordering on snarky. I don't believe it's snarky. It will be received as such. It is telling the truth. So my insurance plan, my healthcare plan is going to be me working and saving money, not spending money on kids so that I can have a life where I can take care of myself when I'm older. Hopefully that means I am more well, able-bodied, or it means that I have the funds to be in some type of a care home. I don't have to have that conversation with them. All I need to say is needing long-term care when I'm old is not a reason to have kids. Something to that effect, right? Bringing a child into this world for their purpose to be to take care of me doesn't make any sense to me, right? So now we've got a couple of options that is really educating them and also showing, wait a second, do you hear what you're saying? Do you hear what you're trying to do here? You must really hate kids. This one I've gotten so many times. And I think it's because I don't have a natural affinity to kids. I'm not the I'm not the person who goes into a room and if there's a baby, I want to hold it. I'm not the person who really knows what to do or how to talk to kids. So when someone says you must really hate kids, I will tell the truth and I will say, I I'm indifferent. It was really helpful when Taylor Swift came out with a song that has the lyrics, "Isn't love, it isn't hate, it's just indifference." That's how I feel about kids. And I will make a joke and I will say it that way with people. The other is if you wanna make this an educational moment, you can even say, "Not wanting kids does not mean that I hate them." And if you wanna have a conversation with them, you can ask them a question back and say, "It's interesting that you equate those 2 together. I wonder what that's about." Right? So you could go further. If this is somebody that you wanna cultivate a relationship with, which I don't know why you would if they tell you that. But if you did, there's a way to you to start a dialogue so that you can give education. If you don't like kids and someone says you must really hate kids, you can say, "Yeah, I do." So we don't have to pretend. If you don't like kids, admit it. If you love children, you also don't have to say, "No, it's not that I absolutely love kids and kids are the best and da 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 da." Because what that's gonna do is open it up. Then why don't you want your own, right? What you want to do is respond to the specific statement that they say that is coming from the bias that they're leading with, right? They're attempting to put you back into the box by saying, "Oh, something's wrong with you because you hate kids." So you don't have to defend yourself because we're not giving in to that anymore, right? Why get married if you don't wanna have a family? Okay. So as someone who has heard this a lot, especially recently, people have told me this. And there's 2 parts to this statement that have to be talked about here. The first is, why get married if you don't want a family? What this is insinuating is that a long-term partnership, a marriage, is not a family. That 2 partners are not a family. And I vehemently disagree, because I also vehemently disagree that I'm not family with my favorite friends in the world. They're my family, and no one's gonna tell me differently. So, getting married is one way to solidify a family unit of 2. So that's the first piece. If someone says, "Why get married if you don't want a family?" My response to that, I see a marriage as a family, and I'm not going to diminish the love and the family unit of 2 people because they don't have tiny humans. That is how I would respond, because that's how I believe. Remember, I'm a romantic, and I also think that it is really dismissive to romantic relationships that don't include marriage, to romantic relationships that are not only 2 people, right? So we've got to recognize that there's so many different versions of what family looks like, that why get married if you don't want a family is basically telling people that you don't have a family if you aren't a parent. Are my parents not my family? What does that mean here? So that logic is lost on me. And now the second part of why get married if you don't want kids is my snarkiness is that the only reason that you married your partner is because you wanted kids, right? My snarkiness is like, you didn't love your partner. You didn't want to spend the rest of your life with your partner. You just wanted to have kids and do so in this traditionally acceptable way. I wouldn't say this to someone. But that's what I'm thinking, right? Because of the way that I think about family. So if someone were to say, "Why get married if you don't wanna have kids?" Because I love this person and I wanna spend the rest of my life with this person, and I see them as my family, and I don't see how a marriage has anything to do with children, and that's the truth for me. Because you can have children without being married, and you can have children without having a partner. So when we are putting marriage and kids together, that is someone attempting to put you right back into that original traditional box that you broke out of a long ass time ago. Okay. All right. We're nearing the end. Don't worry. All right. We've got 4 left. So you'll change your mind or wait until your biological clock starts ticking. And that last one is primarily for uterus owners. This one, as someone who has read the research, biological clocks don't exist. They're sociological clocks. So I'm probably going to have an entire episode on this because I don't know if you know this or can figure this out or not, but I absolutely adore Taylor Swift, and I think that she's fascinating, and all of her work is fascinating. And as of this recording, she's kind of ramping up this relationship with the football guy. And I have seen so many content creators and articles about how she's ready. She's 33. She's ready to get married and have a family, going back to some of our previous conversations, right? And it bothers me because she's at this mark of being over 30 and all of this. People are just saying, all right, she's ready. And maybe she is. I don't know. I don't know her. I would love to know her. Our assumption that a woman who is in her 30s is just chomping at the bit to have kids, and to the point of just whoever comes by, she's going to attempt to mate with, is really, really ridiculous. So, one of the snarky things that I think of, and a lot of people think of when we hear "you'll change your mind," is from House of Cards, the snippet where it says, "Did you regret having them?" Right? A woman asks a child-free person, a parent asks a child-free person, "Do you regret not having children?" And her response was, "Do you regret having them?" And a lot of us wanna say that out loud, and I think it's absolutely appropriate to do so if depending on the tone and depending on the type of relationship you have with that person. For me, if someone were to say something about biological clock, I'll say science has debunked that myth. And if someone says, "You'll change your mind," my response is typically like, "You're hilarious," because they just don't know my story. It's different when they are your own children. I don't like this one. This one makes me feel bad for kids. It's in the same vein of, "I don't like kids, I only like my own," or "You don't have to like kids to have them." Oh man, I've gotten told that one so many times. You don't have to like kids to have them. And also just makes me feel bad for parents who believe this, because what it says is they know they need to take care of these kids and be the best parent that they can be, but they don't want to. But they have to because it's their own, right? So I can't say that. That's the snarky. So the response would be, that's not enough of a reason for me to have kids. Plain and simple. I don't even have to like debunk the myth. I don't have to do anything there. I just have to say that's not enough of a reason to have kids. Right? I Testing out that theory is not enough of a reason to have kids. Your parents deserve grandkids. My parents would disagree. My parents are fully supportive of me being child free. And when someone says this, the response is, I don't owe my parents anything. I didn't sign a contract for that. So that's how I would answer it is I don't owe my parents anything. And, or if it's something where it keeps coming back, like if this is to your parents and your parents are saying, you owe me grandkids, you owe me grandkids, I put up with you for so long, then I just want to be a grandparent. You can say something along the lines of, I don't think it's fair for you to say that the reason that you had me was so that I would have children. That's really hurtful to me. That the only reason that I am here is so that you can have grandkids. And a lot of times the parents will be like, "No, no, you're taking it out of context. That's not what I meant." However, it's important sometimes that we show people what we're feeling. We're not using this as a manipulation tactic. We're saying, "This is how I feel. I feel hurt that I'm being minimized to an incubator that is supposed to give my parents or, these fictitious parents in this case, an option." Right. And then the last one, having kids is so natural. What's wrong with you? The way that I would respond to that is, that's a very rude statement. Boom. That's not manipulative. It is not snarky. It's the truth. When someone says what's wrong with you, when someone is being purposefully hurtful, we have every right to say that's being hurtful. So let me know if I missed anything. Let me know if you have any more questions about how to respond to all of these types of child free bingos. And I'm going to talk more about this because communication is key to connection, and connection is the foundation of joy. So until next time, keep living life without kids and without apology. That's it for me. Have a wonderful week. I'll be back here next week talking specifically about finding connection and fostering connection within the child free community next week. Until then, take care.